Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Wednesday, the 12th of April. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, as you know. And I'm joined today by Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C. Macdonald on the Twitter handle. How are you doing, Aidan? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, Tony. How are you?
Good. Yes, I'm very well. All good. Maybe talk about some football today, Aidan, eh? Steer it back to the old football, yes, indeed. We'll try that, see where it gets us. But first and foremost, guys, just direct you to the bottom of your screen. We say thank you to everybody that's already subscribed to the Celtic Way website. But if you haven't, why don't you give us a bash and subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love, and it'll cost you £2 for 2 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on this site. It's all for the click of a button, troops. You know what I'm going to say, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Why don't you hit that button? www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to our sponsors, SENECA. And as everybody knows by now, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the number one hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. So there you go. Now, thank you to SENECA. Eden, the fallout continues, but yesterday the Celtic manager spoke to the club's channel and gave a wonderful interview and said a few things. So we'll take some of those things, Aidan, and we'll discuss them at length if we can. First things first, he gave an update on Hatate and some of the injured players. And he said about Hatate, he said he won't be out long term. It's just a case of making sure he's ready to go. And on the others, he said, we'll wait and see. I think it's probably unlikely at this stage from the medical report and thinking about the venue and the pitch that we're going to probably be a bit conservative with them. So it's unlikely that anyone's coming back who missed last weekend. That seems quite a sensible approach, Aidan, and also good news on Hatate that it's not long term.
Yeah, it seems like the best approach for the team to be taking at this point. We know the squad is quite strong. Hatate's a massive player, as all the players you mentioned there, but you don't want to be rushing anybody back given the other players that are available at Celtic's disposal. It's a good thing to know that Hatate hopefully is going to be available for the semi-final based off those comments. Tony, maybe I'm being a wee
Yeah.
bit optimistic, but if he's not involved in the next two matches, that's fine. But if he's even an option for the bench against Rangers at Hampden, then I think that would be massive for the team. We know how important that influence he can have, and I think Celtic probably did miss him in the middle of the park.
They
I know
did.
we maybe don't want to be discussing that game too much now because we're a wee bit far removed from it, but Moy, O'Reilly did well to be fair, but Moy was a wee bit off it. Maybe he's still carrying a slight knock, etc. I think it would have flown, would have been more fluid, in the middle of the park if Hatate had been available. So the fact that he's hopeful on the road to recovery is positive because I think, he picked up the knock before the international break, and the fact he then didn't play the two games after it had people concerned that maybe it was going to be a long-term knock. So the fact he seems to be on the road to recovery is good news.
It makes no sense whatsoever, Aidan, to risk any of the injured players on that surface down at Rugby Park on Sunday if they don't have to. Speak about squad depth a lot and the depth in numbers, and the guys that came in played very well. So I would just, I think the manager sees that as well, that just softly approach with them. But yeah, they did miss Hatate, but if you say if that point all points to him being fit and ready for the semi-final, if not before, doesn't it?
Yeah, based off the manager's comments, obviously things can change, and we still will be watching Ange's next next three pressers, before the semi-final very intently to see what he's saying. But the comments sound relatively positive, and I completely agree. If there's one pitch you don't want to be risking it on, it's that plastic surface down at Kelly. We've seen plenty of players be injured down there in the past. I think Simonovic picked up a knock there before. Boyata, I remember getting injured as well. So there's no need to put any sort of players that have an injury on that pitch, Tony. Absolutely not.
Would you play the same midfield down at Rugby Park on Sunday, Aidan, or would you be inclined to mix it up? Would would Iwata come into your starting thoughts, maybe, possibly?
I think Iwata would probably come into my starting thoughts. I know we won't want to give too much away before the predicted 11s, but if we're just talking about that on its own, I think I could see him coming into the midfield potentially for Moy. Tony, to be honest, I think Moy maybe was carrying a wee knock, and if that is legitimately the case, or he is struggling slightly for fitness, then just like I mentioned with Fatati, etc., you probably don't want to be risking him on that pitch, do you? So I'm sure he'll be available from the bench unless something else has progressed in training through the week. But I thought Iwata acquitted himself quite well when he came on. It was quite tough at that stage when it went to 3-2. There was a lot of pressure on it, and he was very calm. His passing was good. He was strong in the tackle, so I wouldn't have any issues with him coming in to start.
Derek Crawford coming in there, Carl Iwata and O'Reilly for him at the weekend. There's an early midfield three for the XIs, as you call them, isn't they? So we'll see how we're feeling later on in the week. Now, something else I really like from the manager, Aidan, and this was all going on the back of Sean's newsletter, which he did a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about Celtic being in a title race, but not with Rangers, with history, basically. So Ange was kind of asked his thoughts about kind of the next 7 games and complacency and stuff like that. Would he take their foot off the pedal? And this is what he said. Why should we? I mean, there are 7 games to go, so why would we want to waste any of them? Every game is an opportunity to create some magic and create some moment for our supporters and also the players themselves. We're not going to waste a day of it, mate. Not until the season is finished. In terms of the league, when we get handed a trophy, then we'll celebrate. But up until that point, we're just going to keep our heads down and keep going. I love that, Aidan. Absolutely love it. Now, Sean has pointed out that Celtic can, amass the same points total, 106 under Brendan Rodgers' Invincible team 2016-17. And to do that, they would need to win 6 and draw 1 of their last 7. But if they won all 7, they would create a new world record, Aidan, of 109 points, surpassing the record as it stands just now. And they can also, in terms of goals, I believe they've scored 98 so far, and they could conceivably eclipse the 1915-16 total of 116 league goals, which was scored in 38 matches. I think the managers, I said last week that inwardly, I think he's targeting these things as a goalpost are now changing, aren't they, Aidan?
It definitely doesn't sound like he's going to let the standards slip between now and the end of the season, Tony. We've previously seen in the past when the league has been one that sometimes Celtic can lead to dropping points. Now, obviously, at the moment, the league is not one. There's still plenty of football to be played. 12 points clear, so obviously Celtic would need to win, at least their next 4 league games to sort of confirm that. But I can imagine, even if it does get to the case that Celtic win it by 12 points and there is, 3 or so matches left, I don't think Ange will be letting the standards drop. Maybe he does have those sort of personal goals in mind that he'll never probably mention, until the end of the season. If he did beat these sort of records, I want to go after Red Star Belgrade's record that you said, or Brendan Rodgers' team's record, Scottish records, etc. But maybe in his mind that is a sort of wee extra motivation for him. Not that he probably needs that much more, because going for a league title at a potential treble is probably motivation enough. But yeah, Celtic are in good shape to do these, potentially beat these records. I think if there was a game you were going to probably drop points, maybe it would have been that match. It's just passed. I know Celtic also need to go to Ibrox again, and I think everybody's hoping that by then that match will be, in terms of the league, a dead rubber. But if you're going there and a victory there does all but kind of allow you to beat records, then I'm sure that'll be extra motivation for the team to go out and do that. But Ange speaks so well, which I know is not a new point to make. We all know that. We all love listening to his press conferences. But yeah, I'm sure he's got his sort of other motivating factors in his mind. Whether or not they've been shared with the squad yet, we don't know. But I'm sure him and the coaching staff have got their own goals outside of just winning the league.
Patrick McLaughlin says there are 2 world records up for grabs this season: the points tally and the goals tally. Now, if history and my memory serves me correct, Aidan, there could well be 3, because I don't think any club has done 8 trebles, have they? To my knowledge. So
you put me on the spot there, Tony.
I could be wrong on that, but I think so. there's potentially, and I think these are the things that you say keep players motivated or should keep players motivated, and I certainly the manager won't need any motivation. Those comments say it all, that they're going to keep going, keep their heads down, and they don't want to waste any of those games. And it certainly sends to me the message that inwardly they're going for this. Outwardly they'll never admit it, Aidan. And why would you?
No, you're not going to admit that before the end of the season. It just puts unnecessary pressure on the team when there's already going to be enough pressure. And obviously, the league, a lot of the heavy lifting's been done, but you've still got a semi-final, and that there still is some matches left that you obviously need to make your way through. So I would be very surprised or probably disappointed if you were to hear the manager or any of the players come out with sort of comments about this is the key goal at this stage. But that is the sort of thing that maybe will come out in the weeds come the end of the season about, yeah, that was a priority at this stage because we were so far ahead in the league, etc. But I think it is probably good for the team, any sort of thing, to keep the motivation going, Tony. It is positive at this stage because it's been a long campaign, and Celtic can probably see that league title in the distance now, or it's coming quite close, I should say. So anything that can keep the players motivated is a positive for me.
Paul Dyack comes in and says a certainty. Ange has these records in his sights and he'll be using them as team talks and motivation from here on in. I think I'm on board with that, Paul. We said it last week and saying it since kind of Sean flagged it up in the newsletter. Big up to Sean for doing that, Aidan.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable read, and I think the sort of headline was well done on it, and it's turned out to be correct really so far.
Yeah,
because 12 points is a significant advantage. Obviously, at parts of the season it was extended, but 12 points would say to you there's not been as much a title race for Rangers this season as people are probably thinking going into it. What me included, particularly how close last season was, I was probably expecting it to be more the same. And I know people will probably say, "Oh, Van Bronckhorst have done a lot of the damage," but Celtic have still extended the lead after Michael Beale took over as well, Tony. So I think Sean's newsletter so far has been proven to be right. To be honest, a few weeks on, that they are always seem to be in a title race with themselves. I mean, when you hear people or you hear fellow Celtic fans, that my friends and family anyway, I'm using them as an example, it is mostly about, can this Ange team better the Invincibles? Can it better these other records rather than making sure you're ahead of Rangers? I think because there's been a significant lead for a while now. It's been points since before the World Cup break. That's also quite a long time. So I think that's probably led to why people are thinking that way. And yeah, Sean's newsletter seemed to be spot on.
Rab McNair at the Celtic way saying this to us, the only thing in Anne's mind is the next game. We are well aware of that because that's all he ever focuses on. He was asked a question and we were quoting what he said and reading between the lines, and he said he didn't want to waste any of the 7 games. So he's clearly thinking about things that could be achieved. But yeah, his focus will be on Kilmarnock Rugby Park on Sunday, Aidan, and we'll have a preview of that as we go on tomorrow and Friday, most certainly, when we'll do our predicted 11s et al. Aidan. There might be one or two changes in there, but yes, Kilmarnock it is on Sunday. Always a tricky venue, tricky surface, but Celtic usually find a way of getting the job done, as they have done all of the season, apart from one game, Aidan.
Yeah, obviously only 2 games you've dropped points this season. One of them was that point at Ibrox, which could prove to be vital come the end of the campaign and be looked back on as a positive result. So fingers crossed it'll be the same down at Kilmarnock.
Now, speaking of that day at Ibrox, a certain member of personnel Celtic made his debut that day, Aidan. That person being Alistair Johnston, and on Celtic's official Twitter feed, he put up some stats about Alistair Johnston and how well he's done since he came to the club. And these were from, I think it was the model that they used was Stat Zone. So, and he's played 990 minutes. Aidan, he said, Alistair Johnston had 13 key passes. He's got a passing accuracy of 87%. He said 56 recoveries. He's won 54 duels and he's made 20 tackles, according to those stats there. I think all in all, I think everybody just thinks that he has got it from the get-go, hasn't he? And he's been an absolute star since he came in, and what a find. And everybody thought that it'd be hard to replace Josip Juranovic in that position, but he certainly came in and made people forget very quickly about Josip Juranovic.
Yeah, I mean, I've said before I was a big fan of Juranovic, and I was a wee bit worried when he left. Not because I didn't think Johnston would be a good player, but just that time in the season to lose somebody who'd been such an important contributor. The prior campaign, I know he'd struggled a wee bit in that first half of the season, but I still thought he had plenty to contribute. But Alistair Johnston came in and been phenomenal, and those stats kind of back up the eye test, don't they, really, Tony?
Yeah.
He's been pretty dominant in every game. He's been strong going forward. He very rarely does make a mistake. There was maybe some discussions about aspects of his performance against Rangers, but overall, I think we agreed that he played pretty well, and that's 3 derbies he's played in now, and he's in my opinion, he's acquitted himself pretty well across all of them. I mean, it's hard being thrown in your first game away at Ibrox, where it was a massive game for Celtic. Where you want to look at it as a must win and a must not lose. The fact they came away with a draw could prove to be vital, and he played an important part in that. And the only sort of maybe slight thing he could have done better in his career so far is probably letting Ryan Kent sort of inside to curl that goal, isn't it? But it was the first game, so I think we can forgive him not being used to the whole defensive aspect of the way Celtic want to play in the inverted fullback role. He's caught on pretty much straight away. I mean, I think he's only missed a couple of games since he started, and one of them was the semi-final. Obviously, he hadn't quite established himself, and then there was another one of the league games I've now forgotten. I think it was one of the midweek ones, but he's played pretty much the majority of the football available to him. So it shows you that Ange's a big fan, and I know obviously you're a big fan of Tony Ralston, but it's been nobody can I think argue with the fact that Alistair Johnston's been a brilliant signing. He more far and away deserves his place as a starter in the team.
Yeah, Maria Spake coming on saying, I love Alec, he's just a diamond. AGSC text saying Age is a great fit. He needs to improve defending set pieces though and his attacking output, but he sees a player who can develop rapidly and he prefers him to Josip Juranovic. And Derek Crawford comes in and says, just wait till he gets a full pre-season under his belt. Yep. And AGSC could take him back in. He brings his ice hockey mentality, which you need in Scottish football. So yeah, I mean, we've spoken about that before. He just thrives on it. The manager spoke very highly of him as well after the game, saying he loves a challenge and he loves that kind of side of it, and he has did very well since he came in to the club, and I don't think anybody would dispute that.
No, I don't think
coming in here saying she just sings Super Ali for the wind-up sake, if nothing else. That would be some wind-up, Aidan, singing Super Ali to Alistair Johnston. But even when he got his Man of the Match award the other day, he swigged the bottle of wine from the bottle, didn't he? Whatever it was.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't know what I just thought
great
that, but yeah, I did see that in one of the hospitality suites. I think it was, Tony. And it was a nice clip, and he's a really infectious personality. You seen that from his first press conference, didn't you? Because he was so keen to answer all the questions. Players can also understandably when they're first joining, they can be a wee bit nervous. I know there's maybe players that take it to the extreme. Aaron Moyes probably the one we would all think about, but Alistair Johnston, it was I remember I think we were both transcribing that press conference. It went on for ages because his answers were so long and detailed, and you can see he's always keen to speak. But what I like about him is he's obviously a very good technical footballer. Played at the World Cup, etc. But he's got that sort of grit about him as well that's needed. Maybe it is the ice hockey mentality. We know that he did play that when he was younger. And what the commenter was mentioning there probably could be spot on. He's got that aggressive streak in him and he needs to be. Not like, irrational, like he's running in trying to get sent off or anything. But I think he just mirrors the two very well, which just aids itself for being a Celtic fullback.
I mentioned the tackle that he put in, or challenge he put in on Tillman on Saturday, and Tillman lay down for a while and then realised he wasn't going to get anything from it because it was a hard but fair challenge. Aidan, so he has that real competitive streak in him, and I think the Celtic supporters love that. 420 summer, the boys have great energy about him, definitely spring in his step. Scott McGill better than Juranovic and loves the whiskey. Was it a bottle of whiskey he was swigging from? I don't know what it was.
It was something strong anyway, I think, Tony. Whatever it was.
Paul Dye, you can tell Johnston upgrading Juranovic, but the fact that no one has mentioned Ralston in months. I think, he's came in and he's kind of cemented his place in that position and has kept Ralston out the team. But it'll be interesting to see when the two of them do have a full pre-season. I think Ange will probably give the nod to Alistair Johnston, won't he?
Yeah, I would imagine so at the moment. The fact is, Ralston's not played a lot this second half of the season because of how dominant Alistair Johnston's been. There'll still be a place for Ralston in the squad, of course, because somebody can pick up an injury at any point. But I think unless there was an injury to Johnston, I should say, it's probably unlikely that Ralston would be given a sort of regular starting nod at the beginning of the next season. I think just in terms of Juranovic, as much as I've been really impressed with Alistair Johnston, I'm probably still maybe a wee bit soon for me to be saying, he's a lot better than Juranovic because a bit of a smaller sample size. Obviously, Juranovic, was at Celtic for a season and a half. I know the first half of this season he did struggle a wee bit, and we discussed that on the pod, particularly in the Champions League. He wasn't really up to scratch in a lot of games, but I think I'd probably still have Juranovic ahead of Johnson for now, just because I've seen a bit more of him. But that could change sort of between now and the end of the season, or even the start of the next campaign. But yeah, that was just all I had to say on that one.
Derek Crawford saying he's 4 years younger than Juranovic, and in his opinion, a better defender. When he works on his final ball, he can hopefully contribute more with goals. Celtic will have a top player on their books. Yeah, he's certainly shaping up to be a top player. Aussie coming in, AJ has a bit of the Munro in him. Yes, indeed. And I think Scott McGill came back in and said it was I think it was whiskey he was swicking from. So we'll go with that, Aidan. Yes, it was. Don't laugh out loud.
I'm sure he wasn't the only person that had a whiskey.
I'm sure he wasn't. Yes, indeed. But no, I mean, some of those stats just augur well and kind of back up, as you say, what you're seeing in the eye test. And you're watching a player who has just settled in to Celtic so quickly, Aidan, and it is a joy to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a joy to watch, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but he sort of adapts into every aspect of Celtic's game. He can invert excellently. His passing's good. Maybe he probably would want to contribute a wee bit more in the assist bracket, but he's put in a few good crosses that haven't been taken advantage of. I think about the one for Kyogo in the first half of the League Cup final. It was right on his head. Probably should have done better. So I'm sure there's plenty of other examples as well that I'm not mentioning. That'll come. That's probably the only thing you maybe want to improve on. People might say goals, but you can't be expecting your fullback to score hundreds of goals. If he's chipping in with the odd one here and there, then that's fine. But in terms of assists, maybe he might want to improve a wee bit on that. But there's still potentially 9 games left, Tony, isn't there? If Celtic get to the final, plenty of opportunity for them to start pad these numbers, as people would say.
Was that the vernacular there you were using, Aidan? Hundreds of goals?
Hundreds of goals, Tony, yes. That's the sort of analysis you get.
Brilliant. I'll just contribute a goal or two, maybe, yes, or a couple, but hundreds of goals. Right, well, here's hoping. Note to Alistair Johnston, start contributing hundreds of goals, says Aidan, like that.
No, sorry, I just saying I don't expect him to.
Yeah.
But obviously I want to probably chip in maybe a wee bit more attacking stats, but it's probably not always on the fullbacks to score goals for Celtic, more being involved in the build-up, playing potential assistant. But as I mentioned, that sort of chance you set up for Kyogo in the final, and there's probably been other ones that I've forgotten about. So, but the potentially the matches between now and the end of the season, I'm sure he'll have plenty of chances to get his assist numbers up.
And it was his assist for the Kyogo goal that was disallowed on
of course,
Saturday, which was an excellent chipped ball through. And I think just unlucky that he'd strayed offside. But Derek Crawford coming in, just echoing my thoughts, his ball for Kyogo's offside goal against playing it. Thought that myself as well. Indeed. Now, on the website today, Aidan, there's a couple of things you've already socialed them, but I'll put them on. I'll put them up and people can read them. There's April the 12th, 1980, Celtic played Hibs in the Scottish Cup semi-final. Celtic ran out easy 5-0 winners, but it was a day when George Best came up against you. They actually played well, funnily enough, but I did a kind of retro piece with former Celtic Hibs defender Jackie McNamara, and you can read that. It's a right good laugh because he talks about Best being at Hibs in that day against Celtic, where I think Best was the only one that turned up. The rest of the Hibs 11 didn't. And then he tells about an unforgettable night that George Best had with Debbie Harry, aka Blondie, of Blondie fame. So you can have a wee read at that, guys. It's great knockabout stuff, and just to kind of commemorate the fact that Celtic played Hibs in the Scottish Cup semi-final on April the 12th, 1980. And there's also a piece by myself that if you subscribe to the newsletter, you would have got this as well. And it's commemorating Patsy Gallagher and his somersault goal in the Scottish Cup final when Celtic beat Dundee. You can have a wee read at that, just the kind of life and times of Patsy Gallagher at Celtic. You've already socialed them, I believe, Aidan, is that right? But
yeah, you're already up on Facebook if people want to click on them. But the Patsy Gallagher one was a very good read, Tony. Maybe some people do know about the somersault goal, but if you don't, it's a very detailed account of it, I should say. And it's kind of hard to believe that it did actually happen, to be honest. But if I hadn't already heard so many sort of stories about it, it probably would have been unbelievable to me. But yeah, no, phenomenal player. The one about Best as well is well worth a read. So get yourself involved, guys, if you've not already had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, and that's the kind of things we do. We put on the website. We can have retro pieces. We speak about Celtic legends and stuff like that. And amongst all other things, we have deep dives, don't we? And we have big interviews. We have statistical analysis, all that kind of stuff. And as we say, you want to get involved. And we have a wonderful community on here who come in every day and put their comments in and fire them up, and we try and discuss them as we go along.
Yeah, obviously it's always good to get the commenters involved, particularly midweek if we're it's in between games and that. It's always good to hear their thoughts on the sort of various topics that we're discussing. So yeah, always good.
Yeah, so you can have a read at them if you log on to the website. And as I say, we will preview the Kilmarnock game in the coming days. Sunday, Celtic play at Kilmarnock. Aidan, is that right?
It is indeed, Tony. Yes, Sunday at Rugby Park. Yes. So they will have to wait on other results to see if they can re-establish at least their 12-point lead at the top, Aidan, at the table. And as you say, the gap has become slightly bigger. Yeah, 12 points. I think it's better than anybody could have hoped for at this stage of the season. As long as Celtic won the league by 3 points at the beginning of the campaign, I'd have been quite happy, Tony. 1 point even, just as long as they won it. But yeah, they've been phenomenal domestically. Nobody needs us to sort of say that to make it clear. Everybody's aware of how strong it's been. It shows you how dominant the campaign has been over the last or since July, August when the season started. I know it started slightly early, didn't it, because of the World Cup, but the fact that they're building up to these records that probably a lot of people thought would never be beaten, particularly that's I know the Red Star numbers are the sort of world record type ones, but I never thought really any team would get near a Celtic points total of the Invincible team, Tony. I just thought it was going to be impossible. The fact that it's potentially could happen is pretty mind-blowing to me, and it probably won't sink in until maybe the team do it. But yeah, hopefully just keep the ball rolling at Kilmarnock.
Nothing's impossible, Aidan, and I think Celtic have got the bit between the teeth. And as we said earlier, I think inwardly they'll be targeting that. Outwardly, they'll never say it. But first and foremost, when you begin any season, you want to win the title, don't you? Everything else,
isn't it, at the start of the campaign.
Everything else would be a bonus. But what a season they could end up having if it all falls into place, and they have 7/8 games, 9 games upon which to do that and carve their own wee piece of unique Celtic history, which I'm sure that those facts and those statistics will not have escaped them. But at this moment in time, Celtic are 12 points ahead at the top of the Scottish Premiership table, and they have 7 games to go. Kilmarnock is the next one, Rugby Park on Sunday. All roads lead to there. And I'll just say thank you for your contribution today, Aidan. Excellent stuff. And I'll just direct everybody to ticker tape running along the bottom as we do at the top of the programme and the end of the broadcast. Why don't you subscribe to the Celtic Way? And you can keep tabs and follow and support top quality journalism covering the club you love. It'll cost you £2 for 2 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the website. We've flagged up a couple of things that are on today, and you can do that all for a click of a button. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA. And as everybody knows, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Thank you for that, Aidan. Thank you to all the contributors. It was actually good to talk about football again, Aidan, after the past couple of days.
Tony. What a concept.
Yeah, it's novel. It's weird. I was kind of like, where do we go? But nah, it's usually always about the football, past couple of days being a notable exception. But yes, so thanks for that, Aidan. Thanks for your contribution. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you again for a terrific Thursday, hopefully. We'll do it all again tomorrow at 10 o'clock or thereabouts for the Pete McGee's of this world. All right, guys, take it easy. Take care. All the best.